read about Luther, he loves to repeat a certain sentence in Latin, which says, simul justus et peccator. What does that mean? There's an English word for simul, simultaneously. Justice is good, saved, and et peccator, of course, is bad. He says we are at the same time good and bad, kind of dichotomy. When Adam made a mess, we fell apart. But thank God there's a second Adam. When he came, he started to mend us. And this is the message of archaeology. It's looking for the broken, forgotten rubbish. And when the archaeologist finds it, he makes a new vase out of the pieces. And this is the gospel. God comes to you and me, simul justus et peccator, and he works on us. So the question is, why search for the ark? Join me as we begin our search in the mountains of Turkey. By the way, we should research every word. And that's very important, because by misunderstanding a word, we can make a big mess. And many people have made the mistake. But let me tell you more about it. Ararat, for instance. Ar is the god of the Armenians, Urarta. And everybody is searching the ark at Ararat. But when you go to the Bible and get the definition of Ararat, it's not a mountain. Ararat, two places, is called a country or a kingdom. The Mount of Ararat, it's only 200 years old. So people read in the Bible, the ark rested on Ararat and everybody goes to Ararat. But it should not be limited, the search for the ark, to the mountain of Ararat. And you will appreciate why this is not the only place for us to look at the ark, search for it. This was my first encounter with Ararat. And my first great discovery was acrophobia. That means fear of high places. You know, for an old man, look at this. Look at this. Can you believe it? I was so scared. My daughter Loretta had to help me. I met this famous man. He is usually on documentaries. His name is Sali. He's the famous guy to take people to Ararat, and he became my friend. And here you see some people climbing this mountain in search of Noah's Ark. Sali says it takes about 5 days for the expedition to the top and to the back. He lost many customers that died in the expedition. So this is a dangerous visit. So I said, Sali, be honest. Will we find the ark here? And guess what he said? No. He tells people, you will not find the ark on the Mount of Ararat. And he's been taking them there for a long time. No ark. Sali told us the sad story of people dying up here in search of something that is not here. Well, what kind of shape do you see here? This was discovered the first time in 1966 by a plane, and they took a picture, and this caused a great sensation. They said, we've discovered the ark. Let's move a bit closer. The possibility of this being the ark caused great excitement from 66 up to this time. If you go to the internet, there's a big debate. Like many others before me, I too examined this ship-like formation. But once you've did a bit of research there, you realize that this is just a natural geographical phenomenon. Rocks looking like a ship. We decided that the ark is not in Turkish territory, so please move with us to Armenia. And I've got so much to tell you about Armenia, but I'll give you just a little bit. New excavations at Erebuni, this is close to the capital, Yerevan. And the second time I got here, archaeologists just uncovered this. It's a marvelous fortress. I was there with Professor William Shea. Brilliant man, I've got respect for him. In many ways, he's my intellectual hero. Guess what we are looking for? Clues about the landing place of the ark. By the way, you won't find the ark because Mrs. Noah told her husband, honey, I want a table. And the kids, Dad, we want to make a chair. So God provided the wood for them to survive. So don't look for petrified wood or a huge ark. Search for the resting place of the ark. Argisti 1 is a too young discovery. He was a contemporary of the Assyrian king called Adad-nirari III, who ruled over Assyria when Jonah preached at Nineveh. So this king heard about the conversion of this great Assyrian king. They all fit together. We're looking for the oldest inscriptions. Why? Because it'll take us nearer to the time when Noah landed. This is Metsamor, one of the sites that we visited. This is a very, very ancient site. And what about these ancient stones? Exodus says, 23-24, do not bow down before their gods or worship them or follow their practices. You must demolish them. Demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. You know, I was wondering about this. And then I read one day that when people worshipped at these monuments, voices from the forefathers spoke through the pillars. So this was a spiritualistic business and demonic. Break them down. Don't go there. The info we got from the museum is that these people were polytheistic. That means they were worshipping many gods. So I don't think we'll find any clue about Noah in here. So let's move on. Up here the archaeologist mentioned something very interesting. Here you only see his legs, but we're listening as he talks to us. This is one of the astronomical sites, and Loretta sits right on top. 7 steps to the platform. This is great discoveries. Astronomical signs. There you see it. Going back a long time. This is the oldest archaeology in the world. Under the discovery of Metsamor, it had been widely accepted that the Babylonians were the first astronomers, when you read the books. But the observatory at Metsamor predates the Babylonian kingdom by 2,000 years and contains the first recorded example of dividing the year into 12 sections. Look at these cosmic signs. Using an early form of geometry, the inhabitants of Metsamor were able to create both a calendar and envision the curve of the earth. Guess what I discovered? The most ancient Armenians were brilliant. You know, evolution tells us people were stupid and we are brilliant. I want to tell you, it is the opposite. When I studied Sumerian grammar, I discovered that these people were so brilliant. We've got computers to help us with our stupidity. They didn't have any. Look at the pyramids. How did they build this? Baalbek. I visited all these sites. People don't know how they built this. We are so brilliant. Excuse me. According to Parsimian, she's a scholar in Armenia, the oldest compass was found here. This was a trading center and they had to use the stars to show directions. Here you have it. Did Noah bring some scientific knowledge with him? Between 2800 and 2500 BEC, before Common Era, that's what it means, at least 3 observatory platforms were carved from the rocks. The Metsamor Observatory is an open book of ancient astronomy and sacred geometry. What do you see here? This is not just carvings in the rock. It is scientific. Parsimian discovered that the primary star which matched the coordinates of its endpoint was the star Sirius, the brightest star in our galaxy. Do you see it? Sirius is most probably the star worshipped by the ancient inhabitants of Metsamor. Between these dates, Sirius could have been observed from Metsamor, this observatory, in the rising rays of the sun. She writes, is it possible that, like the ancient Egyptians, the inhabitants of Metsamor related the first appearance of Sirius with the opening of the year? Polytheism, worshipping of many gods, is bad news. You know, these people have many gods. And you have to pray for the different gods, for different needs you've got. They spend many hours in prayer. We take a shortcut. We only pray to God in the name of Jesus. Now let's go and look for a site where monotheism was practiced. The worship of the unseen creator God. We make a cross on Metsamor and let's do the research a little further. Look at this. What do you see here? Somebody wrote, they sit like soldiers on a hill, huddled in formation. Where exactly is this famous site in Armenia? A kind of a Stonehenge. Well, let's begin our final journey at the Outdoor Museum of Sisian. Sisian is in the western side of Armenia. Any messages from these ancient stones? There they are. Let's walk a little closer. What do you observe here? Now you're looking at the oldest archaeology ever discovered. And these are recent discoveries. Another ram, a sacrificial ram, from the ark perhaps. You know, as I walk here, I ask certain questions. I speak to myself. Shem. Now there's a very interesting relationship between Proto-Araritic writing, petroglyphs, and Proto-Sinaitic script. And I've purchased a book from the British Museum which shows the comparison between the two. It is so exciting. Welcome to the latest and the greatest discoveries in Armenia. Sicyon, and the place is called Zorat's Karar. Zorat's Karar is called also Karahund. Karahund means, in ancient Armenian, the singing stones. So this is an old name that came from many years ago. The singing stones. Can a stone sing? Metaphorically, yes. Are they singing about the story of Noah and the flood? Do they sing about God's love for helpless people? We are looking at the oldest archaeology in the world. It could bring us in close proximity to the resting place of the ark and to monotheism, the worship of one unseen creator God. Have we arrived? I was so excited when I did the research the second time, and my daughter was with me. Rarely have ancient monuments caused such a sensation in astronomical circles. You can go to the web after this lecture and discover for yourself. This is the book I used. Let me tell you what happened. Walter and myself were disappointed. We didn't find anything. We were so excited, you know. But this book was for sale, $100. So Walter said, we're not paying $100. So I asked the man, can I take a few pictures here? And he just about took pictures of every page of the book. He's got other good points. Anyway, we left the research team with the cameras, and we came back to South Africa. More than a year later, I looked at the slides which Walter took of this book, and I realized that we've been at the place that we wanted to be. So while we were here, we asked the man, is there some inscriptions on rocks around here? So he said, yes, for $50 you can go up with an old Jeep, a Russian Jeep, and you'll get the inscription. So we went up there, but man, I've never seen script like this. Not in cuneiform, not in hieroglyphics, not in, it's just a strange script. Anyway, I went back after research. I'm going to share with you what I discovered. Who is he? Professor and scientist in the fields of radio physics, radio engineering. Where did he get the time to study all this? And radio astronomy. He is the Antenna Systems Chair in the State Engineering University of Yerevan, as well as the Radio Physics Research Institute. I don't know what it means, but he's got a lot of degrees. So you can listen to this man. What did he discover here at Zorat's Karar? He was the first man to do decent research. And he got the best scientists of the world to be part of his research right here. Now, what is the meaning of the holes in the stones? There should be some intelligence behind this. What could it be? There's a total of 223 stones that were found here at Zorat's Karar, Karahund, the singing stones. Regular studies were made of the solstice and the equinox since 1994. This is when Heruni started his research, bringing his experts to do research. Most of the holes, he writes in his book, are directed to different points of the horizon. So you look through it and you see different sites. Each stone has got its area on the horizon or in the sky. This was the birthplace of writing, mathematics, the calendar, and the form of the earth, says Heruni. The birthplace. And from here it spread to the ancient world. Stone 97 was used in the study of the movements of the sun. It's so exciting to be at these places. From here they watch the sunrise and summer solstice. Sunsets and summer solstices were observed from stone number 99. And they did scientific research here. And they checked it and rechecked it and shared it with other scientists. This is scientific. Stones like number 63 were used for observing spring and autumn equinoxes as well as for sunrises and sunsets. So they tested all this with modern astronomical instruments and they made their discoveries. You can read it in his book. There were also holes from which to watch the movements of the moon. Now the cosmos was called Ast. Ast means inhabited. Now when I read this, I was very excited. In other words, we do not live in an empty cosmos. According to the Armenians, we live in an inhabited cosmos. And I did a lecture, Is There Life on Other Planets? Which is available where I do decent research. Ast, the inhabited cosmos. And here you're looking at the minefield of galaxies. The Armenians developed the word Ast-Fats for God, the omnipresent one. Ast is universe, inhabited, and Fats to spread out. What a beautiful definition of God. Well, you cannot define God, you can just look at aspects of His greatness. What a description of the Creator. Let's peep through one of these holes and you'll get a surprise. This is my child. Well, this was just before we made another great discovery. Now, through this one opening, you see more stones with more holes. Can you see the side of this hole I'm looking through? I've put my camera there. There are the edges. There's a stone. There's one. Those posterity studied the night skies and believed in a creator God. They studied the night skies. Now, can the Bible confirm the claim that this is the oldest civilization as presented by the scholars? Yes. Genesis 9, 18 and 19 says, the sons of Noah came out of the ark. They were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. By the way, the curse was not on the father, but on the son. I've got another lecture on the posterity of Noah, where they all went and what the modern names are. These were the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Archaeology says, at Zoratskara, civilization began. The Bible says civilization began with Noah and his sons. So put the two together and you've got one site, one place. What about writing? Heruni says, the first writing pads were Armenian rocks. So writing began in Armenia on rocks. Now Heruni's research is amazing. Here he shows how all the ancient languages ends in ancient Armenian language. And this is a known fact too. Anybody who studies grammar will tell you that this is what happens. You can take all the languages back to one single language. So what's this old man doing there? Man, I was so excited. What about the statement that the earth is round, which was discovered just the other day? This is what they found on one of the ancient rocks. So what do you see here? A circle and people inhabiting the planet. This goes back to just after the flood. Ancient art of a round earth inhabited by people. Where did they get the knowledge from? Now this man, Shirakazi, it's a strange name. If you want to give your boy a name, this sounds very intellectual. Shirakazi. He's an astronomer, a philosopher, and a mathematician. He writes in his book, Cosmology and Chronology, that heathen Armenian philosophers affirm that the earth is ball-formed and animals live on all sides. What else did they believe about our solar system? That's the sun and the planets. Is it heliocentric? Is the sun in the middle? Copernicus, Galileo and Kepler made this discovery only in the 1600s. Newton followed them in the 1800s. These people taught it from the beginning. You think they were stupid? We are stupid. This is Samos, where Pythagoras lived. Paul also visited here, and I walked on their steps. When he returned, that is Pythagoras, maybe you've come across his name in mathematics. When he returned to Greece from Armenia in the 6th century, that's BC, he taught that the planet is round. So he got it from Armenians, and the Armenians from others and others. And I believe they got it from Noah. Here at Zoratskarara, I ask myself a question. Who taught the Armenians, the ancient ones, about the astronomy and the round earth? Who taught them? Heruni writes, to project, build and use such stable and accurate instruments for different scientific purposes, it was necessary to have the preliminary accumulated knowledge in astronomy, mathematics and technology, to have written language, to have high experience in methods of observations and calculations for a long time before building Karahanj. Now these people do not believe in the Bible. They bring us the facts. And they said, he reckoned 70,000 years. But if we believe the Bible, that Noah came and he brought all the knowledge with him, this could have been done 20, 30 years. It's good to rely on the biblical info. One source explained. descendants. And I'm quoting from the best commentary on the Old Testament. The writer says, in the antediluvian world, that's before the flood, there were many wonderful works of art and science. These descendants of Adam, fresh from the hand of God, possessed capabilities and powers that we never now look upon. Remember, they lived to almost 1,000 years. You know, my life is gone. I want to do so much more research. But Moses says 70 years, brother, and it's finished. Think of it. If you could live 1,000 years, stay healthy, and your brain keeps on developing. These were marvelous people. I'm convinced that Noah and his descendants brought the science of astronomy to Zorat's Kara, right here where I'm standing. Now this is ancient writing from Uruk, near Ur of the Chaldees. What about the art of writing? Initially it was believed that writing originated from Mesopotamia. Mesos, Potamos, the land between the two rivers. Heruni and Maximum prove that all alphabets have their origin in Armenian. This is a tremendous study, and there's unanimity. There's agreement about the scientific fact that you can trace back all the languages to one. By the way, it's not in my notes, but I just want to mention you something. You know, the Bible says everybody spoke one language, one tongue, one accent. And then at the Tower of Babel, there was confusion. And then they started to speak many languages. Now, a scholar by the name of Kramer in 1957 read ancient cuneiform tablets. The heading was The Golden Age of Sumer. And he says there was a time when all the world spoke one language, just like Genesis says. Then 16 years later, he got another clay tablet which says, there's conflict, there's confusion. Now there are many languages. You can believe everything the Bible says. Any other sources to enlighten us? Yes. Zorat's Karar, the singing stones are revealing their secrets. This is such young scientific discoveries that we still have to watch the internet for more info, and I wish I could get some more. The antediluvians, write this specific author from the book Patriarchs and Prophets, the best commentary of the Old Testament. The antediluvians were without books. No Alzheimer's. They had no written records. No written records. But with their great physical and mental vigor, they had strong memories, able to grasp and retain that which was communicated to them, and in turn to transmit it unimpaired to their posterity. This is what it looked like before the flood came. Wouldn't that be wonderful? You know, they say 70% of what you're listening to tonight, you'll forget it in 30 minutes' time. And maybe you can even exceed it. But before the flood, they memorized and remembered everything. I wonder what the couples did. 600 years ago, you insulted me. The oldest post-flood observatory on the planet. You're looking at it. Scholars agree that the calendar was developed right here. Are there any biblical evidences to support this supposition? Archaeology says here it was used, the calendar. Is there a Bible verse that supports this? Do we have evidences of the week, the month, and the year in the Bible? Yes. Let's look at it. Genesis 8, 12 and 13. He waited 7 more days. Here you've got the week. And sent the dove out again. But this time it did not return to him. By the first day, there's the week. By the first day of the first month, there you've got the month of Noah's 601st year. There you've got the year. The water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. Zoratskarar, they had the calendar, the week, the month, the year. The Bible says, yes, we've got it. Science, Bible, they synchronize. The cycle of time originated from God, and what a gift we enjoy it right now. Time. And let's be kind to one another. Don't withhold a good deed if you can do it. Let's hug, especially our old people. We like hugs, man. Or touch the younger ones. Let's use our time to build up one another. Noah gave it to the post-flood civilization, the calendar. This is the man who invited me to come with him, Dr. William Shea. Zoratskarar also had a mausoleum and some tombs. And Shea speculates that Shem might have been buried here. Of course, we have to test his hypothesis. Oldest worship center in Armenia. This is where people worshipped. Who did they worship? Now Noah lived another 350 years after the flood. You know, he had a little problem. You know what the problem was? But it only happened once. And he recovered from his drinking problem. I'm so glad the Bible is an honest biography. Adam had a problem with his stomach. He ate apple. Noah had a problem. So the stomach has been a problem for a long time, especially we bigger people. Anyway, he lived 350 years after the flood. So there was lots of time to convey to the new generation the knowledge he had accumulated, that he got from Adam right through. Was he the one of the architects of this observatory at Zoratskarar? Was it his passion to teach people about the creator of the universe? I think so. Did he teach them about the fall and the pre-flood world? Yes. Unlike Metsamor, the phallus symbol is absent at Zoratskarar, which tells me that these people were monotheists, worshipping one God, opposite to Metsamor, where they worshipped many gods, polytheism. Can we assume that Noah settled as close as possible to the site where the ark came to rest? Is this logic? Or would he tell his wife, Mrs. Noah, let's walk 2,000 k's and I'll give you a tent to live in? It's stupid, you know. They've got the wood of the ark, why not settle right there? This is what logic tells me. If this is the case, we must search for leads on the adjacent mountains. The oldest archaeological site. Now let's look at this area for the landing place of the ark. We slept at Dogubayazit near Ararat in our search, and when I got out of bed that morning, I looked at Ararat. You not always see the snow. It's usually covered with clouds, but this day it was visible. Where would you prefer to bring the ark to a resting place? You've got a choice. On dangerous Mount Ararat, or a safe haven between mountains with a gentle slope going down. Ucht Asar, called Mountain of the Covenant, near Zoratskarar. I've taken you to the bottom, and this is the top. So here is the oldest archaeological site, and here is a mountain that was called the Mountain of the Covenant for centuries. Did God make a covenant with Noah? Yes, the rainbow. So this is the mountain of the covenant of the rainbow? I think so. Now, which is the easiest slope from which to descend? That's Ararat. Man, I can see the elephants rolling down there. And Noah coming down with a rope. That's Ararat, and this is Ucht Asar. Look at this gentle slope to the top. Now, the window of opportunity to visit Ucht Asar is only for a few weeks in the heart of summer. Otherwise, it's like this, covered with snow. And both visits to this site was in the middle of winter, and we could go up. This place was hid from the human eyes for millennia, as if God protected this place for this late hour in which we live. Would the time ever come for people to research the finds up in this mountain? Yes, and I lived to this day to have seen it. It happened just recently. During this war, the Karabakh War in 1988 to 1994, one of the men, Ashot Avagayan, managed to get to the top. The town is down there, and he managed to get to the top in the middle of summer. And this place was discovered. So it's very recent. It is 3300 meters above sea level. How do we get to the top? Will this Lada Russian Jeep get us to the top? When Walter Feit and myself went there for the first time, the Jeep stopped quite a few times. We had to put water in. And he's a very impatient German, you know. But my best friend. Eventually we got to the top. Will we see ark-related petroglyphs, that's writings in rocks, portraying people and animals? That was what they were in the ark, people and animals. What an exciting journey. Gentle slopes enable you to reach the top. It takes a while, but eventually you come to the top. On the summit we parked next to a lake. The huge basin is surrounded by soft mountains. Could this perfect haven be the place where the ark came to rest? I'm asking questions. What are we going to discover? Will we find ancient rock inscriptions up here? Nowhere on the Armenian mountains have they discovered what we're going to see now. Up to this time, nowhere. And this is superfluous. The writing is called Itzachir. That means code letters. Itzachir. And the artist has got some of it on here, which I think is perfect. Now let's see if we find sketches of people on the petroglyphs. The first time I was here, there was a team of archaeologists from the British Museum, and they had satellite contact with the museum. So London has got some info. What do you see? This is the man. There you see it. Does he look sad or happy? He's happy. Yeah, he's happy. Maybe he just got out of the ark. People rejoicing. Do you see them? They don't look too happy, but it's people. And by the way, you are looking at the oldest petroglyphs in the world, the oldest archaeology. What message did the original author want to convey? Questions we ask. Now, here you're looking at a man standing like this. Now, in Proto-Sinaitic script and Proto-Ararat script, this is the soft sound ach, no ach. You can check it for yourself. Now, what else besides people were in the ark? Animals, yeah. Just the prototypes. Let's look for tombstones on which animals appear. Now, what is the message of these animals? A lot of research still has to be done. Here's a representation of animals who left the ark. Could it be more animals? Could this be a primitive representation of the ark? Questions, questions, questions. How old is Itzachir? How old is it, Walter? He says about 5,000 years. I think he's a little out. Let's make it 4,000. And how many are there? There are 2,000. On what were they written? On tombstones. This is what they discovered thus far. Who were these people? If this is where the ark landed, these are the descendants of Noah. Now, will we find a representation of the fall of man on these petroglyphs? Well, let's do a careful investigation. What is this? Well, he's got big hands. I think he helped build the ark before the flood. At last, one of the most important sketches were found here. Loretta and myself drove up with this jeep, and the driver, they cannot speak English, he said, Adam, Eva. And I grabbed him and I said, show me. And I held him until he came to this rock, because to investigate 2,000 rocks would take me 2 months. But he took me here, and I was so excited. Now look carefully at this. Have a very careful look. Heruni, the great scholar, explains. He says this is a snake. There's the head. Okay? And then he says, this is the tree of good and evil. There you are. Do you see some fruit on it? Eve taking the fruit, there you've got it. And Adam's reaction, sweetheart, what have you done? So this is Heruni's explanation of what's happening here, the oldest archaeology in the world. A reminder of the consequences of the first transgression, perhaps. We're asking questions. Why? The destruction of the planet by water was the result of sin. As it was in the days of Noah. You know the verse. Were the Hyksos really the first inventors of the wheel in the 1600s BC? Loretta is pointing here to some kind of vehicle. See the wheels? Now what about Noah's name? Let's do research. Now William Shea says there's a relationship between Proto-Araritic and Proto-Sinaitic script. And this is the latest research with which I'm busy. And it's very fascinating, time-consuming. Now, we want the N, we want the O, and we want the K sound. While walking in this huge basin, the following statement came to my mind. As the waters began to subside, the Lord caused the ark to drift into a spot protected by a group of mountains that had been preserved by His power. Does this site fit the description? It says these mountains, and you're looking at them, were but a little distance apart. And the ark moved about in this quiet haven and was no longer driven upon the boundless ocean. This sounds like a loving, caring God. Does it sound logic? Yes. And then the author continues in the book Patriarchs and Prophets, this gave great relief to the weary, tempest-tossed voyagers. Sitting in that boat. Oh, no seat belts. Hang on to an elephant. But God placed the ark in a safe haven to eliminate unnecessary pain. It matches His character. The statement kept ringing in my ears while I was up here the second time. A spot protected by a group of mountains that had been preserved by His power. When you look at some of the mountains in especially Ararat, they are rugged. But here you have smooth mountains. And this is exactly what I found myself. At the lake, before going down, I meditated. The ark moved about in this quiet haven and was no longer driven upon the boundless ocean. What a considerate God. He will never let you suffer beyond what you can take. The story of Noah tells us how to escape the coming destruction. Genesis 6 verse 8, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Remember the tools I mentioned last night? When you study the Bible, you've got to look for typology, eschatology, soterology, merisms, chiasms, archaeology. Here is soterology. Grace. Some people say grace only began at the cross. No. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Have you accepted God's unmerited gift of forgiveness and salvation? This concept that I'm saved in spite of my sinful self, by the grace of God, gives you spiritual energy to work for the Lord and to obey Him. How did the acceptance of God's grace and His unmerited favor affect Noah's life? It says in 7 verse 5, and Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. If you accept grace, like Noah, you will do all that the Lord commanded you. Luther once wrote, and he says, a man who only believes in the law is like a drunk man getting on a horse's back. He's going to fall off. And somebody that only believes in grace is like a drunkard who gets onto a horse's back. He's going to fall down. We've got to keep these two together. Grace and obedience. You cannot separate them. Has the sequence changed? God never changes. I'm going to do a lecture on Elijah and on John the Baptist. They preached law and they spoke about grace. They speak about law and they spoke about grace. And the end time Elijah will also tell people, you are saved by grace in order to obey every revealed will of God. The destruction of our wicked planet is nearer than we can anticipate. We're living on a time bomb. It's getting worse. How can we escape this cataclysmic event of the destruction of this planet? Jesus is almost on his way. I think the angels are shining their trumpets. I think they're in a hurry to present the greatest musical event in the history of the cosmos. Can you imagine 5 billion trumpets sounding throughout the cosmos? And when he comes with his glory, the Father's glory, with Christ's glory, with the glory of all the angels. The sun is going to be on parks, dim, in the light of the glory that's coming our way. As it was in the days of Noah. Is grace again being extended? Are we going to allow God's grace to change our lives? By the way, you can only change and obey through grace. You haven't got the power to do it yourself.